No hype, no doomsday scenario, Zurich and Switzerland tech careers, raw, unfiltered, and fact-based. So this will be the purpose of today's video. In 2026, what is the situation for tech workers in Zurich and in Switzerland in general? From a salary perspective, from a life quality perspective, from a job security perspective, and how these things benchmark against the broader European tech market. I'm Nicola Madio. If you're watching this, probably you know me. If you don't, I'm the leading creator around tech careers in Europe, especially around high-paying, six-figure tech careers in Europe. I have over 60,000 followers on LinkedIn, and I talk about these topics daily. I have a newsletter called The European Engineer with over 15,000 subscribers, and I have this small YouTube channel, and I regularly post on X as well. And I have a job platform, a career platform called Eurotop Tech, which gathers now over 15,000 six-figure tech jobs in Europe, on-site and remote. And another one, Remote Goats, more focused on remote work, six-figure remote jobs. And without further ado, the situation in the Zurich tech market in 2026 is similar to that one of last year and quite different from that one of 5 to 10 years ago. I will just talk about some major trends. So one trend that stayed the same, rather than trends, maybe these are more like a segment of the tech markets actually. So one segment of the market is that of big tech companies. So Switzerland is famous for having high salaries, and big tech companies as well are famous for having high salaries. This means that if you work a big tech job in Switzerland, you will make the highest salaries in Europe that you can make. So it is the best setup for making let's say similar salaries to what Google engineers or Facebook engineers make in San Francisco, in the Bay Area in general. So that's a fact. Of course, this is one of the reasons why Switzerland is appealing for many tech workers and corporate workers in general, is the high salaries. And there are some big tech companies hiring in Zurich and Switzerland. I used to work for one of them as well. And well, if you can land such a job, it's an excellent solution to make a lot of money. You can somewhat easily make 200K in your 20s if you manage to enter in your 20s. There are people making 200K US dollar total compensation before turning 25 in Zurich. So this is quite unique for Europe, and it's worth, of course, mentioning. But how big is this segment? I will probably maybe show it later a little bit in my platform Eurotop Tech, where I gather all the big tech jobs in Europe alongside fully remote high-paying startups. And there you will see that, like in the big tech jobs in Zurich, you have 89 positions. I checked yesterday. And there are places where you have way more jobs, like London, you have hundreds of big tech jobs. Dublin, you have hundreds. Warsaw, you have hundreds. So you have big tech jobs in Zurich, but the market is not very big. It is very competitive. Moreover, if a big tech company in 2026 is hiring in Zurich or Switzerland, they are their goal is to get the best talent possible in Europe, especially like a bit R&D type of talent. They really want to hire people, graduates from ETH, the University of Zurich, or EPFL in Lausanne. Sometimes PhD graduates for their more research adjacent projects. For example, just to name a few, like Zurich tech scene. I made another video, you can check among my other videos, but too long didn't read. You have like Walt Disney having a research center. You have Meta originally having one of its Oculus offices here in Zurich. You have Apple having its Apple Special Projects team where they do self-driving, computer vision. You have Microsoft, which has had a lot of VR and AR in Zurich over the years. You have Google having DeepMind, Gemini, AI research, a lot of that done here. Google is a bit of an exception because they are the only one with a big office of 4,000 or 5,000 people, and they not only do R&D, but they also do normal product work. Although the trend is that increasingly the work done in Zurich is R&D related. For example, this year or late last year, Pinterest opened an office here, and they do focus on AI here in this office in Zurich. So pretty much every big tech company in Zurich is doing AI work right now, or computer vision, or augmented reality, or robotics, whatever it is that is R&D, they like to do it here. So you need to combine these two variables, of course. One is the size of the big tech market not being very huge. As I mentioned, less than 100 positions compared to other cities where you have way more positions. And in addition to that, these positions are often in a niche R&D role, which are exceptionally competitive. So you are not just competing with other tech workers in Europe who want the top of the top compensation in Europe. You're also competing of the subset of this set. If you're an engineer and you understand what set is, so you're competing with the subset of the top tech workers in Europe who is into like research oriented roles, right? So if you are one yourself, then it's okay. You know, if you are an ETH student and you're doing a master and you're focusing in AI and you're doing a research thesis, maybe you will get that published. You know, you are the type of person that is likely to have a good chance competing in this market and landing such roles. If you're not, you will have to assess. And then now we will talk about the other segments. So based on that, you will understand if Zurich or Switzerland might be a good spot for you. Zurich and Switzerland, are they the same? Of course not. Zurich is just a city in Switzerland, but if we are talking about tech careers, they are almost the same. Ticino is completely irrelevant for tech careers. There is only Bloomberg and a few finance companies there, but it's very limited. I mean, there are like the more rural canton. Of course, they don't have a lot of tech presence. There is the only other pole is Vaud, Canton Vaud, so the Lausanne area. You have, of course, some tech roles there, but not too many, I would say. In software, in pure software, you have a lot of med tech or startups. It's generally not a great place, Lausanne, for high-paying tech careers, but I mean, it is a little pole, very small compared to Zurich. And then you have Zug, which has a bit of a crypto scene, crypto and finance scene, but it's quite niche. If you are into crypto, though, that's definitely worth looking at. So I will broadly refer, depending on what I talk about, I will mention Switzerland or Zurich, but whatever I say for Zurich kinda expands on Switzerland as well. For what I talked about so far, like the big tech scene, that's entirely in Zurich. So that was accurate to mention just Zurich in that case. And well, the crypto scene can pay very well, similar to big tech, and that's in Zug, same as quant finance. Also, it has a little bit of a presence in Zug, but that's even more niche. So if you are in one of those niche, you can check it out. Eurotop Tech has jobs for those companies, so you will find those there. But let's move on to the next segment, which is innovative startups. So as I mentioned, there is these big tech companies, they have a little bit of R&D in Zurich, okay? There are other companies doing R&D, you know? It's not like if you work in R&D, there is this broad pool of talent doing R&D or deep tech work, or however you want to call it. And those who don't end up in the big tech research centers, which now also, you know, expanded a bit with the new wave of AI, because Anthropic opened an office here, DeepMind, Gemini are expanding in Zurich a bit, and I'm not sure if OpenAI also opened an office. I heard they did. I don't know if they closed it in the meantime or something. But yeah, so you have this pool in the big tech research centers, research labs, Oracle labs as well. But there is also smaller startups. So for example, these ETH PhDs or master students that they play a bit with AI, computer vision, robotics. The ones that don't end up in big tech, they either end up founding or working in local startups. So these are small or larger startups. Sometimes they have a few hundred employees. And they do similar work at the end of the day, usually more physical AI oriented, so more in robotics. And these are a big segment, I would say, for jobs in Zurich. Especially if you're coming from abroad, let's say you are a citizen of a EU country, France, Romania, whatever, and you want to move here, these startups can be a good way to enter. They're usually English friendly, same as the big tech companies. So if you don't know German or French, you can still get a job there. Immigrating, like getting a permit in Switzerland is relatively easy if you are EU. If you're not EU, it's quite complicated. I made another video on that. And they are a good way to enter. What's the downside of that? Is that they don't pay very well. Usually they pay quite low, actually. They pay surprisingly low, I've been finding lately. I will expand onto this. And usually they expect you to be talented and hardworking, They are like, we are doing these innovative startups, revolutionizing manufacturing in Europe with modern robotics. And we want the best talent. It's best if you went to ETH or if you have some research papers or some really impressive projects, blah, blah, blah. You will work with top people on the frontier technology and all that stuff. And that might be all true, by the way. But the problem is that you're working a lot similar to big tech in most cases and getting paid very, very low. So I heard... and they even like upfront about this. They're not even hide it, actually. So I don't know. It can be a play for some people, but just to get things straight, like I saw the other day, like an intern at one of those companies, robotics companies, who was somehow making a post about how much better pay was in Switzerland compared to Italy. And in doing so, he kind of revealed his salary as an intern at one of these robotics company, and the salary was like 3K per month. And I don't know if they realize, I guess if they made this post, they don't realize how low that salary is. But, well, they did. And to me, it's surprising. It's like, I don't know, this is a post that you made on LinkedIn about financials being good in Switzerland, working here, but yet you're saying your salary is 3,000 euros, which is literally, I think, below minimum wage. I think if you work at McDonald's, you make like 4K per month. So it's like really, really low salary. Like you can barely make ends meet. If you're living like a student, you can, of course, make ends meet. You share an apartment. There are some ways to pay less and so on. You never go out because you're always working in these startups. You can live on 3K per month in the same way as you can live in San Francisco on 3K per month, but obviously this is not a high salary. And well, this is how much the startups pay here. For interns, and then for full-time roles, it's also not too much different. Of course, it's a different salary because as a full-time employee, you get paid more. But at the same time, it's not high. It's like you can get paid 60, 70, 80K. As a full-time employee in a startup, which is also very low for Zurich, like it's not gonna give you that financial freedom or comfort that you're probably seeking in a move to Switzerland. So yeah, this is something I wanted to mention. They don't pay a lot, most of these startups. Some of them pay a bit okay. But a lot of them really like underpay, and their entire strategy is we start in Zurich, we don't pay too much taxes, it's business friendly, blah blah blah, which is also why I have my company here, even if I'm bootstrapped and I'm a solo founder. And then they also say we can hire top talent and we don't have too much competition, because we can hire these ATH grads, which maybe they don't find better jobs, but still, if they manage to enter ATH and graduate from there, they are top talent. And we can also say to some developer or engineer in Italy or Romania or France, look, we're gonna pay you like 80K. In France you're gonna maybe earn that after a few years unless you enter big tech. Some people are not very informed about big tech, and so they might think like, oh, this is a high salary. This is also actually what happened to me in 2018. I took a 80K offer to come here in Zurich. And I thought, this is great. And then, let's get things straight. For me, at the time, it was great. Like, if you have €0 in your bank account, and then you end up with a salary of 80K, and you are 23, 24, it's a lot of money at the end of the day. I came here, I shared an apartment with other people. I paid 800 francs per month. Maybe now, today, it would probably be a bit higher. But I could go on holiday, I could go to the south of France, flying from Zurich, go out for dinner, party, and so on. And still I was able to save some money. An important point is with these low salaries in Switzerland, even if they're not very high, like 80K, which is not high for Switzerland, you will not live like a rich person in Switzerland at all. Like if you start to have your own flat and go out a few times per month or per week, it's not a lot of money. You will not be left with much at the end of the month. But if you are frugal, then it allows you to save a lot, even if the salary is not high. But considering that it is high in an absolute scale of Europe cost of living and Europe money, if you take this 70, 80K salary in a startup and it's a low salary, you will not have a high purchasing power. But you're young and you're okay being frugal and maybe, I don't know, doing partying or things like this when you are abroad, then you will be able still to save a good amount of money. So in that sense, it's not bad if you are frugal. But otherwise, if you are looking at a long-term view, or if you are like a senior engineer or you have kids, then the picture changes, then it's not so appealing anymore. Okay. This is the second segment. So first segment, big tech. Second segment, startups. Third segment is local large companies or local subsidiary of foreign large companies, like foreign American companies. Not big tech, more like traditional, more old American companies. Among the local companies, this can mean working in pharma. This can mean working in finance, in some bank. If you work in a Swiss bank, it's very different than working in a high-frequency trading, for example. It's not the same word. It's more like working for a commercial bank. So it's usually not so prestigious, and the salaries are also not that high. But it's okay. So within this whole range, like pharma, banking, American companies like, I don't know, MasterCard or so on. I don't know, probably MasterCard doesn't have an office in Switzerland, but like these type of companies, like Fortune 500 companies. This can be a good, and let's put into this bucket actually also the small local companies like, I don't know, the local rental marketplaces, local newspapers, local media companies, things like this. Let's put them all in one bucket. And so their salary is going to be a bit higher than the startups, than the majority of startups. There is like a bunch of like startups that pay a bit more, but it's less than 5, I would say, in Zurich. So these larger or Swiss companies, more traditional, they pay a bit more than startups. They have a better work-life balance than startups also. They also have more boring projects, so that's the downside. You're usually not working on frontier tech or things like this. You're working on more traditional stuff. And in these companies, it's more common to be asked to speak the local language. So German in the case of Zurich and French in the case of Lausanne or Geneva area. And what can I say? Well, I worked in one of these companies. The one I worked in 2018 that I mentioned earlier, it was an American company, FIS, a Fortune 500 company that had an office here. And I would say it would fall into this range. these jobs are okay. What can I say? I mean, they pay a bit better. For example, you can make 90, 100K as a junior, and 120 maybe as a mid-level senior, 130, 50 if you're like a manager, something like this. And it's a type of place where you enter at 8 or 9 and you leave at 5 or 6. And it's this has usually been, in my opinion, the real cheat code in Switzerland. Other than big tech, if you were able to enter big tech, which of course was very lucrative, this was also a very good one, because in the end, you wouldn't have to work too much. You wouldn't have to be like exceptionally good. You still have to be very good, because even the regular jobs here in Switzerland, you need to be quite good, because everyone in Europe could apply. So you need to outcompete a lot of people, and the locals are very well educated, so you need to compete with them too. But at the end of the day, you didn't have to be anything too exceptional, and you will still have a good enough salary here to live a decent life. You could save more money. Like if you were an average developer, you would get more out of life in this way than elsewhere in Europe, in my opinion. And this was the appeal, the popular appeal of Switzerland to work as a corporate worker 5, 10 years, 20 years ago. But what happened in the past 5, 10, 20 years is that, companies have started realizing that it doesn't it's not so convenient for them to hire in Switzerland, paying the high salaries. Also because the Swiss francs keeps going up as the world becomes less stable, of course, and the Swiss francs being a safe currency, it goes up compared to the US dollar or the euro. Trying to straighten up a bit this. Okay, sorry. So it goes up and so on, and so it's less financially reasonable to hire here. So these companies have been increasingly offshoring, opening offices in Serbia, in Romania, in Poland, hiring developers and engineers remotely from Southern Europe, from Eastern Europe. Nearshoring and stuff like that. So they are shrinking effectively. They are keeping some office workers, of course, in Switzerland, but usually like the back office, so to say, especially within banks, this is largely being offshored. And so if you were that developer, working 10 years in these companies, making 120K, well, now things start to look more tense for you, which is why, while working in a startup that I mentioned earlier, making 80K, you can be frugal, you can work on cool stuff, it can be fun. But if you're looking at the market with a more long-term approach, this needs to be mentioned, right? I know several people in their 30s and 40s who are currently not too happy about the situation here. They're not as rich as you might think they are. When you start having kids, if both parents work, for example, for the first 4 or 6 years, you need to pay like 3K per month in the Zurich area for childcare per month per kid. So I would say if you are a family and both of you work like normal jobs, like 100K, 120K jobs, you are not saving a lot of money, and you are working in the end relatively hard, because it's still Switzerland, no one here, it's like chilling. So that's something to be mentioned. And when they shrink, what happens? So when these companies shrink because they offshore, well, people flood the market, which means companies have more leverage because there are more unemployed workers they can hire from, and they don't need to compete to hire these people, so they can just pay less. In fact, there is a phenomenon of wage dumping as well. I heard companies that are effectively lowering their salary even though the cost of living is going up. So things for the average tech worker are getting worse in Switzerland. I can say this quite safely. If you are a top tech talent, it can be rewarding if you enter big tech. It can be rewarding and fun if you enter in one of the startups that I mentioned, even though the economic math there, it's not there by and large, in my opinion. And let's compare this now a little bit with what's out there, right? So let's say you are an average tech worker, then it's gonna be hard. You're not gonna manage most likely to enter one of these jobs in this last category that I mentioned, the local jobs and subsidiaries of larger foreign companies, because there is so many unemployed people right now, and a lot of these companies require the language, so it's gonna be very hard for you to compete with them. Maybe you can if the company is doing some wage dumping thing, where I don't know, they used to pay the person like 110K, and then they can hire a remote dev from I always say Romania or France, but let's say from Italy for 90K, and maybe this person, I don't know, was making 40K in Italy, and I think, so you can have a chance like this if you are okay being underpaid as a like 35-year-old senior dev getting paid 90K, which is ridiculous, but you can enter these companies in such a framework. Otherwise, it's going to be quite hard. And so I don't know what are the options too much for average workers in Europe, but probably you could land like an 80K remote jobs, which is not it's not too hard at the end of the day. 70K, like even if you're average, you should average and senior, 70K is achievable. And arguably it's better to have 70K remote in Europe than 90K on site in Switzerland. So I think for the average dev, not so convenient to be here. For the top dev, if you are top dev in R&D and you manage to get into big tech, it's okay. It's very high pressure. You need to really be like a top player, like this week, or between this and last week, I have two friends in big tech. I will not say the companies, and both of them got laid off. In one case, they destroyed the entire office. They just fired the entire. They just laid off the entire office and opened it somewhere else cheaper. And in one case, my friend was fired for performance reasons. So you can, if you enter big tech, do it by all means, enter. And if it is for you, you're going to enjoy it and make a lot of money and make millions in 10 years or something like that, and can retire early and do whatever you want. If you manage to enter, you can also work there a few years like I did, save some money. And then maybe you will find something that you enjoy more doing, and you can do that with the financial buffer behind it. This is what I did. That now I work on my own projects, and so if you are a top developer, it can be worthwhile if you enter big tech. If you don't enter big tech, should you work in a startup? Because in the end, you need to be talented to work in these startups. And is it the right choice for you to work in one of these Swiss startups? Only you can answer this question. The upsides is you can work on robotics. So if that's what you like, you're a little engineer, you want to work with robots, and you want to build the future and save Europe's manufacturing and all that, then do it. Otherwise, I would say don't do it. I had my first coaching client 2 years ago. He got into the program. He was working as a mid-level engineer in Italy, making like 40K. He wanted to move to Switzerland originally. So when he entered the coaching program, that's in Switzerland or in big tech. That was his goal. So he got, in the end, during the program, I don't remember, I think 120K job in Switzerland in a startup, smallish company. So a decent paying one. And then he also got a 90K euro remote job. So like 100K US dollar. He ended up taking the remote one. He moved to Cyprus, set up his company there, built the remote company through his company in Cyprus, paying less than 15% in taxes total. Cost of living in Cyprus being half of Switzerland. He saved a lot of money in 2 years working there, and now he's kind of like still there working more as a freelancer. So he has clients which are companies, so a bit similar to what he did, but instead of just one company, he has one or two depending on the period. And he built great financial success through doing that. And so in his case, I would say he was a good talent. He could enter the better startups here, but still he chose to do something else. So I think it is better to do something else if you are this type of profile, if you are assessing it from a financial and lifestyle perspective. For instance, if you can enter a startup in Zurich, I think you can also enter big tech in Europe, because here's the deal. Like, so there are like what, 10, 20, 30 startups in Zurich that are hiring. There is as many more and more big techs that are hiring throughout Europe, and they hire way more than startups. So like maybe a startup hires for 4 people, Amazon throughout Europe maybe hires for 100 people. So there is the opportunity is way bigger if you're targeting big tech in Europe, and the reward is going to be very good, in my opinion, better than working for a local startup in Zurich. I was making 3K per month as an intern in Amazon Barcelona, the same as the startup guy in Zurich. And like, of course, it's 3K in Barcelona. You're living a great life. Like I was there. How old was I? I was not even that young, because I worked a bit between my master and my bachelor, and I did this at the end of my master. So, but there were, you can do this like at 22, for example. You know, if you do an internship at 22, you can do this at 22. I was like 26 or something. But yeah, 3K in Barcelona, you can have a very nice flat for yourself at the time. Maybe now it's a bit higher, the cost of living, but then probably the salaries are a bit higher too. But at the time, like I was making 3K, rent like 800 euros in a very good area of Barcelona, close to the beach. Yeah, I would go like swim in the sea before work. Then I could go out every day, almost. Like, it's very affordable to go out. Like, yeah, it's a great fucking life. And you're working with interesting projects. Like, I was working. So, for example, this guy that I mentioned before that flexed on LinkedIn making 3K in Zurich, working in manufacturing robotics, like, you know, they are revolutionizing the manufacturing on paper, but in practice, they're not doing anything. Like, let's be honest, you know, like if it's a company with 5 people paying interns 3K, you know, having like, I don't know, 1 or 2 clients paying like 30K, 40K, like this is, of course, nothing compared to Amazon logistics, for example. I'm not saying this to like shit on these people, because hey, like they're doing something great. More people should build companies, and it's very good. But this notion that you need to work in a startup, in a Zurich startup, to work on cool stuff is very stupid. You know, you can learn a lot in big tech companies, and you can get paid much more. You work with people with experience, and you are exposed to like very serious systems, you know, like working with Amazon Logistics is going to teach you way more about tech and manufacturing than working in such a small startups, in my opinion. And yeah, then you can get like, you know, as an entry level big tech engineer, like 100K pretty much everywhere in Europe. And it's not hard. Like, if you really go for it, like getting a big tech job in Poland as a junior engineer, if you are, let's say, an ETH graduate or comparable, like you can do it easily, honestly. And you can get paid 100K. You are in Warsaw, 25% taxes. You have a great fucking lifestyle with that money. You save also 30K easily as a junior engineer. Like, I have this salary and savings collection site called, I mean, it's in a Eurotop Tech. You need to go eurotoptech.com/data. And there you can see that the savings in absolute terms in Zurich are not much higher than in, for example, London. They're actually the same as in London because of how many more big tech companies are in London. So this influenced the average. You save more if you work in big tech Zurich than if you work in big tech London. But on average, since it's easier to enter big tech in London, the average savings is the same in Zurich and London. And also in Poland, there is, I don't remember now, I should check it out, but it's also very high. So yeah, I would say if you are a good talent, you should at least be open to targeting big tech everywhere in Europe. It's gonna open a lot of doors, a lot of exciting opportunities, both in terms of salary and learnings and working on cool projects and working with smart people. So that's what I had to say, comparing the opportunities in Zurich and Switzerland with the others in Europe. If you are a senior engineer, then Zurich, okay, this video is already long, damn. I always make longer videos than I wish I did. But I want to talk about these two a little bit. If you're a senior engineer, because now I focused a bit more on junior and mid-level. If you are a senior engineer, financially, Zurich in most cases will suck because you can get like 150K remote jobs. You don't need to be exceptional. I had, I think, close to 10 clients in the last year or 2 years in the coaching program landing such salaries, and they have no ETH. They worked in like very regular companies before landing such roles, so you don't need to be special at all, and you can get it. So let's say this 150K for a senior engineer in Europe remote, it's very achievable if you know what you're doing, and you don't need to be exceptional. Okay, if you are the same person, like, you will struggle to make 100 to 150K in Zurich, to be honest, because at this point the remote salaries for senior engineers are not lower than the Swiss salaries for senior engineers outside of big tech, and there is way more salaries abroad. So should you be here in Switzerland if you're a senior engineer? It's complicated. I would say career-wise and financially, no. On a human and a family level, maybe yes. For instance, why am I still based in Switzerland even though I have a remote business? Well, because, in the end, Switzerland is very stable. We live in a very unstable times. I don't pay too many taxes. I will have a good pension. It's not quite clear if I were to relocate where I would go. I made a video when I was in Croatia saying I'm considering moving there. I think it can be a good option. I will explore it a bit more and see how it is. But I don't know, it's safe. Public schools are high quality, so if you have kids, you can send them to public schools and they will have a good education. Healthcare is very good quality, even though it's not so cheap, and it keeps raising in price. It's insane. It grows like 5% per year. It's crazy. So it will probably double in the next 10, 20 years in price. And now I'm already paying like almost 600 euros per month. I have a bit of an expensive insurance plan, but you are not going to pay less than 400, 500, depending on where you live. You can pay 3 something if you are young, but I'm 31, almost 32, so I pay more. There are good things of living here. And so maybe, you can even decide, like, let's say you are a senior and you land a 100K, 150K remote job. You can also decide to be here. You can find ways to lower your taxes. So you will pay low taxes, have good healthcare, public schools. If your partner is not working or you're flexible with your work, you don't need to pay 3K per month for daycare. You can find another city outside of Zurich which is more affordable. I'm currently exploring some of these options, like for remote work in Switzerland. You can check my other projects, newsletter.remotegoats.com. I publish there some research I do on this topic, or on Twitter. I post all the time about this stuff on X. I think it can be viable. But all in all, I would say in most cases, if you're a senior engineer in Europe, remote is good. The remote is something you need to know how to master though. Like, you need to know what are the companies, you need to know how to approach these companies, you need to become good at networking in many ways. It depends if you are in crypto or if you are in the web. It's like everything. I mean, I will not, this maybe topic for another video. Let me know if you're interested in what in particular and I can make a video about it. But I would say if you are a senior developer, remote can be good, either in Switzerland or outside. And I think with this, I hope I wrapped it up here. I talked about everything. So in short, to summarize, 2026 tech careers in Zurich and Switzerland. If you're a top tier talent in R&D and can enter big tech research labs, good for you. You can make a lot of money. For a lot of people, if you don't spontaneously end up in this position, I don't know if you should aim for such a life. You need to be a real nerd and you need to be a real overachiever. So while saying on LinkedIn that you got a job at Anthropic sounds very cool, I can guarantee you that most people working at Anthropic are not very cool. Like in general, like their life is not that cool. for all means. You know, what's cool on LinkedIn, it's not cool on Instagram, and it's not cool somewhere else. It's not about being cool, but I just want to say, like, yes, it's not like, because some people sometimes say like, oh, top 1% of this, you know, as if it is better, but it is better in one category. You know, it is better in terms of tech compensation, doesn't mean it's better in general. So yeah, if you are such a person and can get in big tech Zurich, either for a few years or for a long time, whatever, it's good financially, it's competitive. The rest is being slowly managed out from Switzerland, in my opinion. And it's gonna end up, in my opinion, in a market where it's very R&D oriented, which already is. There is the startups where people do things for passion or for like willing to build something, to create. You know, maybe some of the startups will grow and partially compete with big tech, also on salaries. But there is also the caveat that the R&D in Zurich is a lot in robotics. Robotics pays less than software. We can make another video about that in the future. Let me know if you're interested in that and I will do it. Hey guys, I'm tired. I'm gonna wrap it up. I have some other stuff to do. But please comment these videos when you see them, because I assume like my audience here on YouTube is the same as I have on my other social media, but I don't know. And so you should let me know who you are and what you like watching and what you're curious about. Now let's get back to the other work. Have a good day.